literally the most intimate parent-kid relationship ever in history at the moment of its intimacy was what? It was a father saying, I'm well pleased in you.
What's up, guys? Welcome to 5 Minute Fatherhood. Jeff and Jeremy here. Should kids want to please their dads? This is a really interesting question we got from Tyler.
Yes.
So he was taking the skill of fatherhood, and he put this comment in, and he phrased it really well. He talked about how he, as a player on a team, would oftentimes really strive to please his coach, and he realized what a motivation that was for him as a teammate. And then he was like, I don't want to bring that into my home. I don't want my kids to be running around like I did as a teammate, trying to please me the way I tried to please my coaches. How should I think about this? And man, I was like, whoa, that's a really deep question. So there's a distinction that I started to try to tease out when Tyler asked this, which is I actually think that a son or daughter should want, in a healthy relationship, in a healthy dynamic in a family, should want to please their dad. Jesus wanted to please his father. In John 8:29, he says, I always do the things that are pleasing to him. And the question I think Tyler was struggling with is, isn't this anti-gospel? And I think that the difference and the distinction that I was trying to tease out of my answer was, we do not want or ever need to earn God's love. We should never create a scenario in our home in which our children feel that they have to perform to earn our love. That is not a good home. But like, we should have a home in which all of the family members really value and desire to please each other. Those are not the same thing. And a lot of times we think they're the same thing, and they're not. I want to please my wife. I want to please my kids. My kids want to please me. It's not the ultimate thing. There are a lot of other things I want too, but I want that. And Jesus wanted to please his father. And to the extent that your children are motivated to say, I love it when my dad's cheering on the sideline saying, that was amazing, and I pleased him like you did please that coach. Like, in a healthy relationship where there's a foundation of love and acceptance and belonging that is cemented and unmovable no matter how they perform, actually working to please each other can be a healthy dynamic. But this is a tough one. The devil's in the details, I think, in this one, Jeff, right?
Yes, that's a good way to put it. And I mean, we have to give credence to the fact that the most intimate moment of a parent and a kid in all of human history, I would argue, meaning like it was full intimacy, no sin involved, etc., was the moment of Jesus at his baptism. Yeah. And literally the most intimate parent-kid relationship ever in history at the moment of its intimacy was what? It was a father saying, I'm well pleased in you. So like, it's literally shows up. There's only like 2 sentences in that moment, and pleasing is actually one of the things that has to do with. And so, but it's healthy pleasing. There is a huge distinction. Where it gets off the rails, where it's detrimental, and where as a parent you have to really hedge and guard against is anytime it's a behavior or a performance to gain a certain amount of agape love that shouldn't have to be earned, it's given. So that's the distinction. That when those wires start getting crossed, that's dangerous, that's bad, that's where people get disillusioned with the church and God because of it. But there is different versions of love also, and there is different versions of pleasing. So that's the one that really gets off the rails, is if you're trying to literally please someone, you're trying to get a covenantal love by doing a performance. That's not correct. And so as a parent too, we have to make sure we're not kind of propagating that in some sense. So that's that. But then what I would also say is I would also make a distinction also between the coaching analogy, where I think there's a difference between trying to please a coach maybe to play a role in the game, and a difference between just like pleasing him in the sense of like a long-term coach who loves you and affirms you, right? And what I mean by that is, like, when I look back on some of the coaches that have impacted me the most, they're the ones that to this day I would still say I know I could call up and they would give me life advice, and because they love me and because they really took me under their wing as a son, even though we're 15 years removed from some of those on an actual like formal like business card, he's a coach to me. So that, because that was more about the functional parts of the game. And so I think we kind of are lumping a little bit of everything in too much of one bucket. in the sense of like a real coach is the coach who's kind of more a father for your life, even in a sport, versus just like, and I'm able to also divide then what I'm saying because of that with those moments back then where like, yeah, the coach clearly said like, oh, you're not cut out for that. Like you're not going to succeed there. Like you can't do that. You haven't earned that role. You haven't earned that ability. That's not me like being totally destroyed because I don't feel loved by that coach. That's just more the practical elements of like, this is the leader and he understands me more than I understand myself, and knows what's good for the team. So that's a different thing than like this coach is for me and for my best and loves me. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like that distinction is important. And when those do cross over in the sense of you're feeling this one, but in the more like lifelong coaching of love, and affirmation and sonship, then that's a big difference. But I think if you're making that distinction and you're also understanding the difference between the different types of love, I think you're fine. And I think you're good, and pleasing is a good and beautiful thing.